Hello again, everyone. This is part 2 of the presentation on the Elvis books that I have in my book collection. And these books are the less definitive books, but for whatever reason I've picked them up because they have some kind of interest or value to them. The first book is Elvis Presley, The Complete Guide to His Music by John Robertson. And this book is part of a series of complete guide books, and I have other ones in this series. The Beach Boys, The Who, the Beatles, and Hendrix I think I have as well as part of this series, and it basically goes through all of their recorded works and all their albums, and does a bit of an analysis, a brief analysis of every album or recording that they released, and they've done this for all the artists in the series. This Elvis book is Elvis A Biography by Jerry Hopkins. It was written in, I think, 1971, and it's one of the first Elvis biographies, like really legitimate biographies, I suppose. And Jerry Hopkins, I think he also wrote what I consider to be one of the better Jim Morrison and Doors books, No One Gets Out of Here Alive. This is the first, probably cash-in book after Elvis passed away in 1977. It's called Elvis, What Happened? By three of his closest companions, Red West, Sonny West, and Dave Hebler, who were part of the Memphis Mafia. And this came out in 1977, late 1977, right after Elvis's death. This is another kind of a cash-in book. It's called Good Rockin' Tonight, 20 Years on the Road and on the Town with Elvis, by Joe Esposito, who was also a member of the Memphis Mafia, Elvis's crew. Elvis by Albert Goldman, the shocking bestseller. This book was a fairly big hit when it very popular book when it was released in the early 1980s. And that's when I read this book, and I think it was the first serious analysis of Elvis that I read. Albert Goldman also wrote a book around the same time about John Lennon. His books tend to show the negative side of an artist. They're fairly well researched, and I know in this book, this Elvis book, it was the first analysis I think ever done of Colonel Parker, where Goldman discovered that was really unlike an illegal Dutch immigrant to the States, which is why Elvis didn't really tour outside of America very often. But it's an interesting read, and it talked about the dark days, especially in the 1970s when he was shooting up hotel rooms and things like that. Mystery Train, Images of America in Rock and Roll Music by Greil Marcus, who's quite a famous rock critic. And the only reason why I'm showing this is because there's a huge article about Elvis in this that's considered to be one of the great articles written about Elvis Presley. This was released in, I think, 1975, before Elvis's death. That's All Right, Elvis. The Untold Story of Elvis's First Guitarist and Manager, Scotty Moore. Now, Scotty Moore was Elvis's guitarist. Bill Black was his bass player on the early Sun sessions. And Scotty recorded with Elvis right up until the late 60s. Did a lot of studio work with Elvis. But after that, he was kind of pushed off to the side. And the book itself is it's a quick read. It's interesting. You read things about Elvis in the early 50s that the other books don't really show, from the perspective of Scotty Moore, of course. I wouldn't recommend somebody buy this book, but it'd be an interesting read to take out of the library. Colonel Tom Parker, Curious Life of Elvis Presley's Eccentric Manager. It's written by James L. Dickerson, who co-wrote the book with Scotty Moore, the previous book. And people don't really think too much about of Tom Parker. Apparently he got half the money that Elvis made. He had like a contract that was supposed to be like 50% of all the money that Elvis made. So it was a good deal for Colonel Parker. Now, most people don't realize that Elvis didn't really die in 1977. He was actually reincarnated after his death. I mean, his body, his physical body might be in Memphis and Graceland, there at the back somewhere, but he was reincarnated as a fellow by the name of Elvis Costello. This book is called Let Them All Talk, The Music of Elvis Costello, and Elvis Costello was a new wave rocker who was a little bit of country, got into all kinds of things, and now he's married to jazz singer Diana Krall. So this is the reincarnation of Elvis Presley. And if you believe that, you need The Complete Idiot's Guide to Elvis. This is just a fun book. Lots of information about Elvis. Very easy to read. This book here is called Elvis, the Golden Anniversary Tribute by Richard Peters. This is a British book, and it came out around 1985, which would have been Elvis's 50th birthday. And it has a complete A to Z song list of every song that Elvis recorded in the back of it. Lots of pictures and things like that. Now the remaining books in this series are kind of picture books, and there are many, probably hundreds of picture books about Elvis. This one came out in 1976 before Elvis's death, and it's fairly easily found. It's called the Illustrated Elvis. Just lots of Elvis pictures. It's all black and white, unfortunately. This one is just called, let's see, it's called A Celebration in Pictures. It's on Warner Books. This one is a British one. It's called the Elvis Album by Millie Ridge. I'll just do a quick flash through here. Just the usual Elvis stuff. Kind of larger, better pictures in here, though. And this is a picture book. I don't have the cover for this, but this one I really like. It's about Graceland. You see how Elvis lived. There's his stereo and his record collection. That's nice. He had an Ellington album, Tom Jones, Ray Charles. It's got a great reel-to-reel recorder in there. Look at that retro. Oh, look at that retro stereo system. Fantastic. I mean, this is a really fun book. I've never been to Graceland. Someday, though. Oh, there's another picture of his record collection. Lots of 78s. More Ray Charles. Thank you for watching, everyone.